around 17 kilometers from JR Nasu Shiobara Station, along a forest route, along a riverbed in the town of Nasu, Tochigi Prefecture, at around 7 a.m. on April 16, 2024. Even locals don't often visit this location. A 60-year-old man was walking through the forest when he suddenly noticed something odd in the distance. It appeared to be a mannequin that had been abandoned by someone else. He had initially planned to disregard it and go on, but soon after he saw what appeared to be gasoline cans strewn all over the place. When he looked more closely, he saw that there were two burned bodies piled on top of one another. He hurriedly took up the phone to call the police, knowing that something was amiss. "The bodies are piled on top of each other like a cross," was the final detail he whispered over the phone, his voice shaking as if he were about to pass out. The police roped off the area to perform a preliminary inquiry as soon as they arrived on the site. The two victims are thought to have been a guy and a female, based on early findings. The culprit purposefully covered the victims' heads with plastic bags and wrapped their faces with several layers of duct tape, leaving them burned black and preventing them from seeing sunlight until they passed away. It is obvious that this is a murder with a motivation in a setting like this. The forensic team was sent out right away by the Tokyo police to examine the two victims. They created a special case at the same time and started the investigation right away. The two primary victims were recognized by the police as Mr. Ryutaro Takarashima, 55, and his wife, Mrs. Sachiko Takarashima, 56. They were leading solid family lives at an apartment complex in Tokyo's Chiyoda neighborhood before to their unexplained disappearance. They also owned a network of over 10 restaurants in Tokyo, but the distinction was that the eateries were located in the Ueno district, which is roughly 3 hours' drive from both their home and the restaurant chain where Mr. Ryutaro and his wife's remains were discovered. At that point, no important hints had surfaced to speed up the inquiry, except from the victims' identities and houses. Therefore, in the hopes of getting helpful ideas from the public, the police consented to let Nippon TV, the television channel of the same name, run the first story to publicly publicize this case on the afternoon of April 16, 2024. Some locals who lived close to Mr. Ryutaro's home learned of this startling information that very evening and called the police. They said that they had unintentionally observed Mr. Ryutaro exhibiting odd symptoms of worry prior to the tragic day. Furthermore, Mr. Ryutaro was extremely cautious in his movements. He was now only using main roads to go to the restaurant, rather than the shortcuts he usually took. They said that Mr. Ryutaro was having financial difficulties. However, there were no indications of any unusual activity when the authorities looked for information about the two victims' financial investment relationship. In fact, they noticed that the couple's chain of more than 10 eateries was doing extremely well. The police immediately gathered a number of video clips from surveillance cameras in the vicinity of the two victims' residences to track down the hints that led to the two terrible deaths. They split up into groups and reviewed them collectively. The day before the body was found, on April 15th at 9 p.m., security camera footage from a Tokyo surveillance camera next to the victim's home showed Mr. Ryutaro riding his bicycle on the street before he and his wife got into a black car. After that, the car moved to Tokyo's Ueno district, which is only 5 minutes away from their house and is home to the couple's network of eateries. Not long after, cameras in the Ueno area recorded the couple continuing their journey towards Higashi Shinagawa Park and Shinagawa Ward, where they drove for another 36 minutes. Without direct evidence, the testimonies of the victims' relatives and acquaintances are something to consider. On the morning of April 17, 2024, a day after the case was discovered, the police visited the home to meet the two daughters of Mr. Ryutaro and his wife, but neither of them noticed anything unusual before their parents' sudden departure. Thus, the police began questioning based on the relationship of the victims with their employees to see if there were any issues that could have led to animosity. However, it is known that employees of the 10-restaurant chain all affirmed that Mr. Ryutaro and his wife were always enthusiastic, caring, and even had a habit of encouraging their subordinates. That is why most employees often called Mr. Ryutaro chairman and Mrs. Sachiko mama, because they were very much loved by the staff. Additionally, the police are also investigating the relationship between Mr. Ryutaro and his wife with competitors to see if business rivalry could have led to their elimination. And although some shop owners in the area reported that Mr. Ryutaro and his wife seemed to be having trouble with neighboring restaurants recently, but in reality, after the investigation, the police had to let it go because everyone had convincing alibis. All the complications of the case once again gave the police a headache until the afternoon of April 17, 2024, when the Ueno police station of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police unexpectedly received a young man in his 20s, looking frightened, who came in to confess. "I am involved in the case of the two bodies in Nasu." He stated that his name is Ryokan Hirayama, 25 years old, and he works in construction in Saitama Prefecture. Ryokan stated the reason he claimed to be involved in the case was that two drinking friends borrowed his black car from 2 o'clock to 3 a.m. on April 16, 2024. While they were drinking together, the two friends told Ryokan that in about 3 hours, they needed to use Ryokan's car to follow the instructions of the client. Therefore, they wanted to borrow Ryokan's car for a while. At the parking lot of a convenience store, Ryokan lent his car to two drinking buddies, unaware of their intentions, until he got the car back and discovered that it seemed to have been used to transport the bodies of the couple whose murder had just been reported in the news. Because upon reviewing, he discovered items in his car such as tape, wires, a backpack, a driver's license, and even bloodstains, possibly belonging to Mr. Ryutaro and his wife. At this time, Ryokan assured the police that he did not participate in the murder of the two victims, but only lent them a car. When the police questioned him about the identities of the two drinking friends, Ryokan stated, "We usually only call each other by nicknames when drinking and don't know each other's real names." He added, "I think I heard one of them say that if you want to use fire to destroy something, it's best to do it in a place with few people." The police asked more about the client that the two mentioned, but Ryokan just shook his head. In light of the situation, the police identified at least 3 people who could be the main suspects in this case: the two drinking friends Ryokan mentioned and the client. For that reason, the police quickly devised a plan to search for and arrest the 3 suspects, while Ryokan, who was confessing, showed no signs of committing a crime and was released to go home. On April 21st, Ryokan was unexpectedly arrested shortly after being released from home for 2 reasons. First, the police found information that a few days before the case was discovered, he had purchased items such as mobile cans, gasoline, lighters, electrical tape, and cables. Secondly, 15 million yen suddenly appeared in his account in an unusual manner. The police believed that it could be the payment he received for this case. Faced with the 2 convincing pieces of evidence from the police, Ryokan could no longer pretend to be innocent and had to confess that all the tools he bought were actually requested by someone else. He revealed that a mysterious individual had contacted him through an encrypted message, instructing him to procure the items for a planned operation. As he spoke, a sense of dread washed over him, realizing the gravity of his involvement in a criminal conspiracy far beyond his initial intentions. This individual is Hikaru Sasaki, who was also designated by the client as the representative to make the Ryokan request. Additionally, the client transferred 15 million yen, or about $100,000 USD, so Ryokan could pay the following people. First, Hikaru Sasaki, a 28-year-old man in charge of the entire body disposal procedure, 1 million yen, or about 7,000 USD. Second, Ryokan received 9 million yen, or about 60,000 USD, for his role in bringing the parties together. Thirdly, the 2 drinking buddies whom Ryokan claimed not to know by name, who disposed of the 2 bodies for him, are Kirado Wakayama, 20 years old, and Kangkwang Ki, 20 years old, of South Korean nationality, each receiving 2.5 million yen, approximately 16,500 USD. The investigation has obviously been moved from a regular crime to an organized crime, with the highest level being the client, whose identity is still unknown, the director being 28-year-old Hikaru Sasaki, the intermediary being 25-year-old Ryokan Hirayama, and former child actor Kirado Wakayama, as well as suspect Kangkwang Ki playing the role of the direct perpetrators against the victims. With the names provided by Ryokan, the police quickly dispersed their forces to search and apprehend. April the 29th, more than a week after Hikaru Sasaki was arrested. During the interrogation, Hikaru stated that he had received instructions from the client and had not received any payment for that work. Once again, when the police asked about the identity of the client, Hikaru, who could be said to be the closest contact with that male client, did not reveal any name. He said, "I received a call from a stranger with a restricted caller ID, and I was asked to dispose of the body, that's all." Normally, How many people would accept a suspicious request from a stranger without even being paid? The police believe that the suspect Hikaru is lying to conceal the identity of the mastermind. On April 30th at 3:30 p.m., 20-year-old Kang Kwang-ki was arrested at a hotel in Yamato City, Kanagawa Prefecture, and around 10:45 p.m. the same day, Kirato Wakayama was arrested at an acquaintance's house in Chiba City. One shocking revelation for the Japanese media is that Kirato Wakayama, as rumored, was a once famous child actor known for many roles in popular live-action adaptations of famous anime. His sudden fall from grace and subsequent involvement in criminal activities have left fans and industry insiders alike reeling. Many are now questioning the pressures faced by child actors as they transition into adulthood and the support systems in place to help them navigate such challenges. Returning to the interrogation room, with the victim's blood found on the backseat and in the trunk, as well as DNA from hair or other items on the two suspects' bodies sticking to the car. Both of them realized that they could no longer hide the truth and confessed that they had received 2.5 million yen to carry out the task of moving and disposing of the bodies, but they absolutely only carried out their duties and did not kill the two victims. Of course, it is impossible to fully trust the suspects' testimonies, so the police are urgently continuing their investigation, as after a long search journey, they have still not been able to find the Silent, who may have orchestrated the entire plan from the shadows. A team of investigators was assigned to review the CCTV footage near the location where Mr. Ryutaro got into the car. During this process, they unexpectedly found something noteworthy. On the evening of April 15th, before Mr. Ryutaro got into the car, a camera captured an image of Mr. Ryutaro and a man walking together. After the investigation, the police identified this man as Ryo Maeda, a 36-year-old real estate contractor, who was an acquaintance of the victim's couple. The police immediately investigated every move of Ryo during the time the incident occurred. Some of the remaining police officers went to meet the neighbors around the victim's house to further investigate whether there was anything special about Ryo's relationship with the two victims. Summarizing his movements, the police discovered that around 11 p.m. on April 15th, the camera recorded 4 people, including Ryo, the two victims, and another person, together arriving at the vacant house managed by Ryo's company. But the 4th person in that group was quite a strange face, not one of the suspects. He seemed more respectful towards the two victims. He even bowed to the two victims lower than Ryo did. After looking into this person's identification for a few hours, the police surprisingly found that the stranger was Seiha Sakine, the victim's daughter's 32-year-old lover. The investigating team went right away to ask questions of the neighbors who lived close to Mr. Ryutaro's family house. They obtained crucial information here, as was to be expected. In particular, a few neighbors expressed their surprise at not seeing the daughter's boyfriend visit since Mr. Ryutaro and his wife had their issue. According to the locals, Seiha was first spotted in this neighborhood 2 or 3 years ago. Seiha met them while working part-time at a restaurant they owned, the two victims claim, and then got to know and live with their daughter while also helping out with the family company. However, their relationship quickly deteriorated, and Mrs. Sachiko strongly disapproved of her daughter's involvement with Seiha. Mr. Ryutaro and his wife were so upset with him for running the business carelessly that they even revoked his management privileges and gave them to their daughter. Seiha's name is becoming more and more suspicious in relation to the crime's motivation because of both financial worries and personal hostility. The case changed course on May 6, 2024, 3 weeks after it was first found. Ryo is the accomplice that assisted Seiha in luring the two victims to the abandoned house and starting the criminal act, while Seiha is the client that all of the earlier suspects referenced because they thought he may be the mastermind behind it all. Police then arrested Ryo Maeda, 36, and Seiha Sakine, 32, who were the victim's daughter's boyfriends. The police also visited the abandoned residence in Shinagawa Ward to conduct an investigation and collect additional evidence after all of the suspects were taken into custody. Suspecting that the two offenders had attempted to wash away the blood before moving the victim's body into a car, the police discovered evidence of a mess here, including a high-pressure washer. They then turned the body over to Kang Kwang-ki and former child actor Kirato Wakayama to finish the case. According to the information available so far, Seiha was the manager of a restaurant run by the victim couple, but had conflicts with them over management policies. Furthermore, interviews with investigators revealed that Seiha had sent messages to Manami Takarajima, the victim's eldest daughter, saying things like, "I will erase them," and "I will make it so they cannot move around here." The question is, why Mamani keeps silent? Tokyo, June 27th. An interagency investigation team from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department and Tochigi Prefectural Police arrested the victim's eldest daughter, Manami Takarajima, suspecting her of murdering her parents. The investigation team did not disclose whether she admitted to the charges. She is the 7th person arrested in connection with the murder. Looking back at the details of the incident took place on April 16, 2024, between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., when Ryutaro and his wife went to a vacant house in Tokyo, together with suspects Seiha and Ryo Maeda, who are believed to be the ringleaders. At the vacant house where the assault took place, Takarajima and his wife were assaulted to death by the perpetrators, Kan and Wakayama. Later, in the early hours of April 16th, the burnt bodies of Ryutaro and his wife were found in Nasu town, Tochigi. Suspect Ryokan Hirayama, who acted as an intermediary, and suspect Hikaru Sasaki, who acted as an instructor, were also seen before and after the incident. Looking at this series of events, the involvement of the suspect Manami was not confirmed. Suspect Manami did not go to the vacant house where the crime took place, but what was the decisive factor that led to Manami's arrest this time? Manami Takarajima was a director of the company run by Ryutaro, but she was removed from the board in January 2024 before the incident and returned to the company after her parents' deaths. According to the Metropolitan Police Department, as a result of analyzing the evidence, they believed that she was an accomplice in this case, leading to her arrest. Manami Takarajima was detained as a co-conspirator rather than an assisting and abetting criminal. According to the definition of conspiracy and co-principal crime, some of the conspiring suspects commit the crime after communicating their plans to a suspect who has been arrested for murder. In this instance, the police seem to have shown that they were completely aware of the murder specifics. Considering who will receive the most benefit after the murder this time, it is quite possible that the suspect Manami, who has returned to the executive board, is the mastermind, including from the perspective of inheritance. It is expected that a thorough investigation will be conducted in the future as the perpetrators are apprehended. Even in the case of this arrest, Manami's involvement was revealed through corroboration and coordination of the interrogation. In addition to the interrogation, the police appear to be closely investigating email exchanges and actions taken after receiving the email and are quite confident in making the arrest. Of course, there is no guarantee that no more arrests will be made, as it is also possible that Manami will give a new statement. Even if another suspect is identified in the future, the investigation will proceed with caution. Lastly, the explanation for why the two victims' bodies were arranged in a cross configuration is currently the topic that the Japanese public is most interested in. One of the things that keeps the public interested and up to date on news is the response to this question. In the end, it might not just be a random observation, but possibly incorporate some religious or spiritual components. What are your thoughts on this shocking case? Share your opinions in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another chilling story. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.